The richest man you never heard of spent his last decade in total silence, and when he died, the banks found something strange. $73 million in cash, sitting untouched in accounts he never once checked. No one could explain why he stopped talking. The executors assumed madness, but his diary, locked away for 30 years, told a different story. On the first page, in perfect handwriting, he wrote, "The moment I stopped listening, I started winning." You won't hear that story on the news. You won't find it in the glossy finance magazines that clutter the airport bookstores, the ones with billionaires grinning on the cover like they just sold you a bridge. Those publications exist for one purpose: to keep you moving, keep you buying, keep you plugged into the grid of noise that slowly drains your wallet while you sleep. Because here's the thing they don't teach you in business school, the thing your parents didn't know when they told you to work hard and save money. Silence has become the most valuable commodity in the modern economy, and you're giving it away for free. This isn't a story about meditation apps or productivity hacks. This is about something older and darker, something that started nearly a century ago, when the men who built the modern world discovered a weapon more powerful than guns or gold. They discovered that if you could control what people heard, you could control what people wanted. And if you could control what people wanted, you could make them poor while convincing them they were rich. Let me take you back to where it started. Not to the clean narrative you learned in school, but to the real story. The one written in the margins of congressional hearings and the confession letters of advertising executives who couldn't sleep at night. The year is 1929. Not the crash, not yet. We're in the spring, when everyone still believes the party will last forever. The stock market is a rocket ship, and ordinary people, school teachers and shopkeepers, are mortgaging their homes to buy shares in companies they couldn't explain to their own children. Every barber shop has a ticker tape. Every dinner party turns into a stock-picking contest. The noise is everywhere, infectious, deafening. Newspapers run special editions 3 times a day, each one screaming about fortunes made before breakfast. But there's a room in Manhattan, quiet as a church, where 6 men are sitting around a table. They don't look worried. They look focused. These are the men who run the banks, the real banks, not the neighborhood savings and loans that will collapse like sandcastles in 6 months. They've seen the numbers. They know what's coming. And they're doing something that will seem insane to everyone watching. They're buying silence. One of them, a man named Harrison, owns newspapers in 14 cities. He issues a memo that his editors will find confusing. Stop reporting on the market every hour, he tells them. Scale back. Make it boring. His competitors think he's lost his mind. Why would you make the news boring when everyone is obsessed with stock prices? But Harrison understands something they don't. The noise isn't just reporting the bubble. The noise is creating it. Every headline about overnight millionaires pulls another fool into the casino. And Harrison doesn't want to be in the casino when the lights come on. He's buying silence for himself. While everyone else drowns in information, he sits in his office with the ticker tape turned off, reading reports his analysts prepared in the dead of night. Reports about debt ratios and margin calls, about the real numbers underneath the fantasy. He doesn't make a single trade based on what the newspapers say, not even his own newspapers. He operates in silence, and when the market collapses in October, he's one of the only men in America who gets richer. Now, jump forward. 1953. The war is over. The Depression is a memory, and America is building something it's never seen before, the suburban dream. Identical houses spreading across former farmland like a rash. Every house has a television now, a brand new invention that glows in the living room like a shrine. And in the boardrooms of Madison Avenue, the men who sell soap and cigarettes are having an awakening. They've discovered something that would have made Harrison smile. The television isn't just a way to show advertisements. The television is the advertisement. Every show, Every program, every carefully crafted moment of entertainment exists for one purpose: to create a mental state where buying feels like relief. The shows aren't the product. You are. Your attention, your anxiety, your endless low-grade dissatisfaction with the life you're living. That's what they're manufacturing. There's a psychologist who works for one of the big agencies, a man named Dichter. He's a disciple of Freud, and he's figured out how to weaponize the unconscious mind. He runs focus groups where he shows housewives images of products while measuring their pupils, their breathing, their heart rates. He's not asking them what they think, he's watching what they feel. And what he discovers is this: people don't buy things because they need them. People buy things to quiet the noise in their heads. The noise of inadequacy, the noise of comparison, the noise that says your neighbors are happier, more successful, more loved. Dichter writes a report that becomes the Bible of modern advertising. He explains that if you can create a constant hum of dissatisfaction, a background radiation of anxiety, then every product becomes a painkiller. The refrigerator isn't just keeping food cold, it's proving you're a good mother. The car isn't just transportation, it's validating your worth as a man. And the genius, the truly diabolical genius, is that the products never actually work. The relief is temporary. The noise always comes back, louder than before, because the noise is the point. The noise is the product. Keep them listening, keep them anxious, keep them buying. By the early 1960s, the system is perfected. The average American sees 500 advertisements per day. Radio in the car, television at home, billboards on every highway, jingles embedded so deep in the brain that grandmothers hum them in nursing homes 50 years later. The noise is total, inescapable, a 24-hour broadcast directly into the human nervous system. And the results are exactly what the architects intended. Consumer debt begins its endless climb, savings rates start their long decline, and the American worker becomes a hamster on a wheel, running faster every year and somehow ending up further behind. But here's what they didn't advertise, what they buried in the fine print of the American dream. There were people who opted out. Not hippies or dropouts, but something stranger and more threatening. Millionaires who lived like paupers. Factory workers who retired at 40. Immigrants who arrived with nothing and died with everything. And the one thing they had in common, the one variable that the economists couldn't quantify, was this: they had somehow escaped the noise. There's a woman in Detroit, 1968, who works on the assembly line at the Ford plant. Her name is Dorothy, and she does something her coworkers think is bizarre. She refuses to buy a television, not because she can't afford it. She's been working at Ford for 20 years, overtime every weekend. She could buy 10 televisions, but she doesn't. She goes home to an apartment with books and a radio she only turns on for the news, 15 minutes a day. Her coworkers mock her. They call her old-fashioned, weird, out of touch. But Dorothy is running a different calculation. Every dollar she doesn't spend on the things the television tells her to want is a dollar that compounds in a savings account at 4% interest. Every hour she doesn't spend watching commercials is an hour she spends reading about investments, about the stock market, about the companies her coworkers are buying products from. She's not depriving herself, she's just operating in silence. And when she retires in 1985, at the age of 57, her net worth is $1.2 million. Her coworkers, the ones who mocked her, the ones with the big televisions and the new cars every 3 years, are still working, still broke, still listening to the noise. The banks noticed people like Dorothy. The advertising agencies noticed them, and they recognized a problem. Because if too many people figured out the secret, if too many people unplugged from the noise, the entire system would collapse. So they did something brilliant and ruthless. They made silence expensive. Think about it. In 1950, you could live a quiet life cheaply. A small house, a simple car, food from the local market. The basics of existence were accessible to anyone with a decent job. But slowly, methodically, the price of peace started to climb. Suburbs became mandatory, which meant a car became mandatory, which meant car insurance and gas and repairs became mandatory. The television became the social hub, which meant not having one turned you into an outcast. The noise became infrastructure. By the 1980s, the financial industry discovered a new tool, the credit card. Consumer credit had existed before, but it was crude, limited, almost quaint. The new credit cards were different. They were psychological weapons. They severed the connection between spending and pain. When you handed over cash, your brain registered loss. It hurt a little, just enough to make you think twice. But swiping a card, that felt like nothing. That felt like a magic trick. The noise of consequence was eliminated, and spending became frictionless. The results were catastrophic and wildly profitable, depending on which side of the transaction you were on. Credit card debt in America went from nearly zero in 1970 to over $100 billion by 1990. And the interest rates, the beautiful, usurious interest rates, hovered between 15 and 25%. The noise was now generating profit even while people slept. Every unpaid balance was a silent tax, a penalty for listening to the advertisements that told them to buy things they couldn't afford with money they didn't have. And then came the internet. Oh, the internet. The noise went from a broadcast to a conversation, from something you could turn off to something that followed you everywhere. The smartphone, that little glowing rectangle of anxiety, became a portal to infinite noise. Social media wasn't just showing you advertisements. It was turning your friends into advertisements, your family into advertisements, your own memories into advertisements. Every photo, every post, every carefully curated moment of someone else's life was a tiny knife of comparison. A whisper that said, "You're not enough. Buy something. Feel better. Repeat." The data from the Federal Reserve tells a story that should terrify you. The median American family in 2019 had a net worth of $97,000. Sounds decent, right? Except that number includes home equity, which most people can't access without going into more debt. Strip that out, look at liquid savings, and the number collapses. Half of Americans couldn't cover a $500 emergency without borrowing money. 50% of the country living paycheck to paycheck in the wealthiest nation in human history. But here's the part that should make you angry. It's not because they're not working hard enough. The average American works more hours per year than a medieval peasant. It's not because they're stupid or lazy or morally deficient. It's because they're listening to the noise. Every streaming service, every notification, every targeted ad engineered by algorithms that know them better than they know themselves. The noise has become so sophisticated, so personalized, so inescapable, that opting out feels like choosing exile. I want you to imagine something. Imagine you wake up tomorrow and every advertisement disappears. Every billboard is blank. Every commercial is dead air. Every social media feed shows you nothing but what your actual friends actually did. No sponsored content, no influencers selling you a lifestyle. What would happen to you? The first few days would be disorienting. You'd feel like something was missing, like a hum you didn't know was there suddenly stopped. Your brain has been trained to expect the noise, to process it, to react to it. The silence would feel strange, possibly uncomfortable. But then, slowly, something else would happen. You'd start to notice things. You'd notice that you don't actually want most of the things you thought you wanted. You'd notice that the anxiety about keeping up, about having the right clothes or the right car or the right kitchen appliances starts to fade. You'd notice that the money you used to spend without thinking starts to accumulate. This isn't theory. This is documented. There are studies, real academic research, showing that people who reduce their media consumption save more money. Not because they're trying to save, but because they stop receiving the 1,000 daily messages telling them to spend. The noise is expensive. Silence is profit. But here's where it gets darker. The people who run the system, the ones who profit from your noise addiction, they live in silence. The billionaires don't watch commercials. They pay for ad-free everything. They live in compounds where the only sound is wind through expensive trees. They send their children to schools that ban smartphones and teach philosophy and critical thinking. They've built lives of profound, expensive silence. And they're selling you noise at a premium. There's a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley who made his fortune building the algorithms that keep you scrolling. He's worth $4 billion. And you know what he doesn't let his kids do? Use the products he created. He sends them to a school where they learn with wooden blocks and physical books. When asked about the contradiction, he just shrugged and said, "We know what we're doing to people. Why would I let that happen to my own family?" That quote should haunt you, because it reveals the truth. The noise isn't an accident. It's not an unfortunate side effect of progress. It's a designed system, engineered by some of the smartest people in the world, calibrated to extract maximum wealth from your attention and anxiety. And the people who designed it have inoculated themselves and their children against it. So what do? How do you escape a trap that's embedded in the infrastructure of modern life? The answer isn't to move to a cabin in the woods. It's not to quit your job and become a monk. The answer is simpler and harder than that. You have to buy your silence back. Piece by piece. Dollar by dollar. Start with the obvious. Cancel the subscriptions you don't use. Not just the streaming services. All of it. Every app, every membership, every recurring charge that you forgot about 6 months ago. The average American has 9 subscription services they're actively paying for and 3 they forgot they had. That's $200 a month, minimum, going to silence suppressors. That's $2,400 a year. Compounded at 7% annual returns over 30 years, that's $228,000. You're paying $250,000 for noise. Next, kill the notifications. Every ping, every buzz, every red dot on your phone is a little doorway for the noise to enter. Turn them off, all of them. If something is actually urgent, people will call you. Everything else can wait. What you'll discover is that almost nothing is actually urgent. What you'll discover is that your brain, given a chance, can think again. Then comes the harder part. You have to build what I call noise-free zones in your life. Spaces and times where the commercial world can't reach you. An hour in the morning with no screens. A walk with no podcast. A meal with no background television. These sound small, almost trivial, but they're revolutionary. Because in those spaces, in that silence, you'll start to hear something else. You'll start to hear what you actually think, what you actually want, what you actually value. And here's what happens when you can hear yourself think. You stop buying things that don't matter. Not because you're depriving yourself, but because you genuinely don't want them anymore. The mechanism breaks down, the engineered desire fades, and your money, instead of flowing out to corporations designed to take it, starts to accumulate. Slowly at first, then faster than you'd believe possible. There's a man I know, a carpenter in Minnesota, who did this 5 years ago. He didn't make a big announcement. He just started opting out. He deleted social media. He canceled streaming services. He stopped going to stores unless he needed something specific, and he never browsed. His friends thought he was having a crisis. His wife was skeptical but supportive. And within 18 months, something strange happened. They paid off their credit cards, all of them, then the car loan. Then they started saving real money, thousands of dollars a month, on the same income they'd always had. When I asked him how it felt, he said something I'll never forget. He said, "It's like I was sleepwalking through a mall for 20 years, and someone finally shook me awake." I look at my old bank statements, and I don't even recognize the person who spent that money. It wasn't me. It was whoever the commercials told me to be. That's the escape. Not deprivation. Recognition. Seeing the system for what it is. Understanding that every message telling you to buy, to upgrade, to keep up, is designed by someone who profits from your compliance. And choosing, deliberately and repeatedly, to stop complying. The final piece, the piece that transforms this from saving money into building wealth, is this. You have to redirect the money you're not spending into assets that generate silence. Not literally, but functionally. Index funds, dividend stocks, real estate if you can manage it, things that grow while you sleep, that compound without requiring your attention, that pay you instead of charging you. Because here's the ultimate irony, the final twist in this story. Money, real money, accumulated wealth, buys you the one thing the noise is designed to steal. It buys you time, time to think, time to choose, time to live in silence, on your own terms, without someone screaming in your ear about what you should want. The richest man you never heard of, the one who spent his last decade in silence, understood this. His diary, the one locked away for 30 years, had more than just that first line. The last entry, written a week before he died, said this: "They'll call me crazy. They'll say I wasted my life in quiet rooms while the world moved on without me. But I heard things in the silence they'll never hear. I heard my own voice, and it told me I won." You're not going to hear that story on the news. You're not going to see it celebrated in the culture, because the culture is the noise, and the noise cannot afford for you to know that silence is an option. But it is. It always has been. And it's still the most valuable thing you can buy.